Around 1.3 million people die from secondhand smoke every year. All of these deaths are entirely preventable. People exposed to secondhand tobacco smoke are at risk of dying from heart disease, stroke, respiratory diseases, type 2 diabetes, and cancers. Let's have a look.
World Health Organization report on the global tobacco epidemic, supported by Bloomberg Philanthropies, is focused on protecting the public from second-hand smoke.
Second-hand smoke exposure is basically to people who are getting exposed from tobacco smoke, and this leads to a number of health effects, adverse health outcomes such as cancers, lung disorders. So it is basically something which is totally unacceptable.
Highlighting that almost 40% of countries now have completely smoke-free indoor public places. One of them is Mauritius, the first country in Africa to have successfully implemented all the Empower measures to curb tobacco use in the country.
Here in Mauritius, we have different laws that have been implemented for cigarette smoking. Recently, we have the law which was implemented for a restriction of smoking in public areas. And personally, I think this is a very good law because we are not only protecting those who are smoking, but also we're protecting for those who are not smoking, which we call passive smoking.
One of the key initiatives to curb tobacco epidemic in the country is a network to tobacco cessation clinics, which are free of charge. Smoke-free environments help people breathe clean air, shield the public from deadly second-hand smoke, motivate people to quit, deformalize smoking, and help prevent young people from ever starting to smoke or use e-cigarettes.
Mauritius is one of the few countries in the world that have implemented all of these Empower policies at the highest level, what we call the best practice level. The package, which contains the evidence-based interventions to really save lives. I mean, complete bans on smoking in all public places and workplaces, offering help to quit, so the whole cessation, comprehensive cessation treatment, warnings about the dangers of tobacco use, including campaigns, complete bans on all forms of advertising, promotion, sponsorship, and also very effective, but yet still underutilized, is increasing taxes and prices.
8 countries are, however, just one Empower policy away from joining the leaders in tobacco control.
While governments are working and setting policies to make it difficult for smokers to smoke in public places, indoor public spaces, it's also important that the countries and people, societal shifts take place so that we don't have exposure to secondhand.
These are Ethiopia, Iran, Ireland, Jordan, Madagascar, Mexico, New Zealand, and Spain.
Moving on, UNICEF's Ted Chaiban has said that children in Sudan have consistently borne the brunt of recurring violence, upheaval, and displacement, but stressed that the situation that they are facing today is unprecedented, and however difficult things have been in the past, it's never been this difficult. Timothy Omondi with a report.
Briefing reporters in New York on the situation of children affected by the conflict in Sudan, Ted Chaiban said that Sudan was already undergoing difficulties, but with the onset of war in April of this year, things have become worse, especially for women and children.
Children have consistently borne the brunt of recurring violence, upheaval, and displacement, and this is the case again. But I also want to say there's no exaggeration that the situation that they're facing today is unprecedented. However difficult things have been in the past, it's never been this difficult. Before the war erupted on the 15th of April, Sudan was already grappling with the humanitarian crisis. Now, more than 110 days of brutal fighting have turned the crisis into a catastrophe, threatening the lives and futures of a generation of children and young people who make up over 70% of the population.
Chaiban, who is UNICEF's Deputy Executive Director for Humanitarian Action and Supply Operations, placed the number of children killed to as high as 435 and at least 2,025 injured by the war.
From what's reported, 435 children have been killed in the conflict, at least 2,025 children injured. That's an average of 1 child killed or injured every hour since the war began. And we know that that's an underestimate. The true toll is much, much higher.
He noted that for the next 100 days, UNICEF would urgently need $400 million to sustain and scale the crisis response to support the most vulnerable children. He was joined by OCHA's Director of Operations and Advocacy Division, Eden Uosonu, who said 93 humanitarian partners reached at least 2.5 million people with some sort of life-saving assistance.
Across Sudan between April and June. Let's not forget the target is 24 million people. 24 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance, of which the target is 18 million. 24 million people is half the population of a country that before 15th of April was doing not too bad. There were needs, but we were not targeting people in the capital.
Since the war broke out in April, humanitarian organizations and civil society have reported cases of ethnic targeting, a matter that Uosonu addressed.
The accounts from people are saying that certain tribes were targeted more than others. And here, I think the focus right now in this briefing is on how do we get assistance into the different areas, Khartoum, Wad Medani, Port Sudan, to a lesser extent, the Kordofans, and how do we stay and deliver no matter what.
Chaiban and Uosonu recently returned from a visit to the country and to the Chad-Sudan border. Timothy Omondi, GBS News.